I am coming at this conversation representing policing in Charleston. It is a difficult time in our country when it comes to race, and we must embrace that conversation. Understanding and embracing our painful past is important. Things such as Emmett Till, the Orangeburg Massacre, the hanging trees right here in our communities, Walter Scott, Emanuel 9, slavery, recent issues around our country and around this region. Race is a relevant, important, and deeply rooted part of our lives, every day, in every way. Everywhere we look, past, present, and future, we see disparities, inequities, unfair treatment, poor outcomes, hate, and yet there is great reason for hope. To the extent we as leaders have our eyes, our hearts, and minds open to help and lead that change. We are not where we need to be. There is a tremendous gap between the haves and the have-nots on so many levels. Policing is an important part of the solution, and yet we have not always been on the right side of this issue and at times have been a significant part of the problem. Policing today is complex, but despite the often negative perceptions portrayed in the media and elsewhere, most people have a high value and regard for police, and they want us in their communities and they want us to keep them safe. From a 20,000-foot view, solutions must include continuing to drive down crime. Depolicing is not the answer, but as we've just heard, there's a lot of different ways to tackle these issues, while building bridges to increase engagement and public trust. Easier said than done. A simple core value is that we must treat all people with dignity and respect. We must create no additional harms, and we must always focus on the superordinate goal of making things better. Policing in Charleston and across the United States has become increasingly complex, which means that we must be thoughtful in identifying and implementing evidence-based solutions and approaches which will yield the best possible outcomes. Discernible, measurable, tangible, and meaningful. We cannot drive crime down at the risk of losing public trust. We need each other and need to be linked together in all of our efforts. Show me a highly engaged community like Charleston, and I will show you great promise. No matter the issues and challenges, we must be good listeners and we must work together. Following the Mother Emanuel killings, the Charleston Police Department, the City of Charleston, and our communities created the Illumination Project. It has allowed for an ongoing dialogue which has created meaningful progress in many areas of importance. Following are some of those over the past year which are making a difference and are ongoing. We have an external audit of our department, which is ongoing, which has already identified deficiencies and action steps for improvements, and we're working with the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council on many other approaches. We have a Police Advisory Council, which is further facilitating ongoing dialogues and listening sessions, both internal and external to our department. We have Citizen Academy cohorts, and we've created an Office of Community-Oriented Policing, which is doing a lot of outreach in our communities. We focus on the three most important things I think any organization should focus on: hiring the right people, investing heavily in their training from the day that they begin to the day that they leave, and creating a culture of accountability, which is exemplified by leadership, which is something that we have to work hard to develop within our organizations. Improving and building transparency in our agency through things like our complaint process, internal affairs investigative processes, and external communications with our communities. Doing reviews and audits of our body camera program, things that take time, and even though we've had this program for a while, it's still a relatively new technology and takes a lot of attention to get it right. Reviewing our use of force processes, our training, our protocols, our equipment. Building a culture of open conversations and peer-to-peer organizational accountability. We just began a program called EPIC, which is to challenge and address ethical and behavior problems at the lowest levels of our organization and at the time of occurrence to achieve the correct and the best outcomes. openly stating we stand side by side with every person in our communities, in all cultures, in all communities of faith, all race, LGBTQ, and are united against any form of hate, and that we will do everything to fight bullies who assault and attack others because they disagree with what they stand for, having total clarity about hate as a police department and as a city and as a community. Looking at also involved critical incident protocols, and it's a great segue for our next speaker, who I am so respectful of and thankful for her great leadership. Scarlett Wilson, who is our solicitor in this region, is working very hard to have a process that's objective, thorough, collaborative, transparent, and achieves the best outcomes when we have a major incident like an officer-involved shooting. As we move forward into further creating a culture of accountable, ethical, fair, and impartial policing, we must work hard to build and strengthen public trust and collaboration. Here in Charleston, we have begun by saying we are not where we need to be, and we can and need to improve in many areas. We openly acknowledge our deficiencies and are progressing in many areas to achieve better outcomes to all we serve as we continue to work hard in nurturing and making our communities safe. I believe this process is analogous with a marathon. We are only on mile 2 and must work hard to complete this race and cross the finish line together. Coupled with great optimism and hope, I share a righteous anger as we remember the Emmanuel 9. And I remain excited to be here at this time in this place with all of you struggling with these challenges. I look forward to hearing from my partners tonight and my fellow leaders as we all roll our sleeves up together to further lead change and incrementally make things even better.